Welcome all here, Hawkeye Nation, and this is from the Hawkeye of the Storm. I'm joined by our fellow co-star, or I should say the star of the show, and you keep getting these shout-outs on Big Ten Network. I don't know, and I mean this seriously. I said this during the game to the buddy I was watching the game with. There aren't a lot of, and maybe I just don't notice them because they're not you, but there aren't a lot of shout-outs for players 5, 10, or more years in the past. Not to age you, Kachine, but it's been a minute.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
And that's at least the second time that mention has been made by the Big Ten Network and their crew about some comparisons that the staff has made between you and a certain Hawkeye women's basketball player who we'll get to. But I guess we'll start there. How does it feel to continue to get those comps? It shows a pretty good level of respect, I think, toward you within the program.
Yeah, I think I did something very well, and that was rebound basketball. And I think a lot of people, especially at my height, which is 5'8" on a good day, that's not normal. And so whenever there's something that's not normal, people tend to remember it. So it's a good thing to be compared to that. And Sydney has been holding her own. She's been doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing. She's been rebounding the basketball at a high clip. So I think she's been holding her own. 14 rebounds that's a lot of rebounds. So I think that in general, it's awesome to hear. It kind of reminds me of like, I made an impact. So yeah, it's good. It's cool. I would definitely say that. And I think a lot of people that remember me play, they have an idea. But it's still cool nonetheless. And I appreciate every time somebody is still talking about my times in the Iowa Hawkeye uniform. So
said player, Sydney Falter, is we have an RTI Threads player of the game tonight, folks. Backed by popular demand, RTI Threads sponsoring our player of the game. And to our callers on the phone line, we're putting you on a brief hold. We'll bring you into the conversation here in a minute. But Sydney Falter has earned this tonight. Could have went a couple different directions here, Kachine. I'm the ultimate say on this, but I'm fine with people arguing for Hannah Stolke because, boy, she made some big plays down the stretch. And, you have 4 of the 5 starters in double figures. And I'm going to call this the upperclassman game. The veteran game. I don't recall, and our guy Kyle Huesmann, who lives and breathes this sport, not just because of his job, I think he's got a passion for it. We'll bring him into the mix in a second to probably tell me this. I don't recall another game this year where this was, without question, a starting lineup game. Like, they started with this group, they ended with this group. There was no question about it. Nothing against the freshmen, but this was not the days for any of the freshmen. Addison O'Grady is the only player off the bench that gave them more than 2 points. And sometimes in road situations, Kachine, also in situations where you've had an unorthodox lead up to the game, they had some travel issues with the plane and with ice, and they didn't get there till this afternoon, and they get up to Minneapolis. It's a condensed routine schedule. You need veteran leadership. So I guess comment on Sydney, you already kind of did that, but just on the veteran leadership of all the experienced players, specifically the 4 starters who finished in double figures.
Yeah, I think I had some tweets of people being like, "Is freshmen? Where did the freshmen go?" I don't really think the freshmen went anywhere. I just think that we're now seeing what we should have been seeing from our veterans this whole season.
Correct.
The freshmen are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So I think that that's a good sign for us because you want that going into the end of the season. But yeah, this is the first time I think where I didn't feel like we needed to sub a starter out. I mean, McCabe could have went anyway with me, but everybody else, I think that was solid in their own ways, of course. But I think everybody else was solid, and like I said, it's a great thing going into even a Nebraska game and things like that, and just to see the fight that we had. They made a run, which is a game of basketball. Everybody's gonna make runs, and how do you handle that on the road? With all the things that you had to deal with beforehand, and you still were able to pull it out and make big time plays. So I think we're on a roll right now, which is a good thing.
Sydney Falter, our RTI Threads player of the game, 13 points for Sid, 3 of 5 from 3-point territory, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, 14 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. And you brought up Taylor McCabe. Give her credit. She was 0 for the whole night, and then she hits a huge 3 down the stretch. And you got to give her credit. I know the word soft has been thrown around toward Taylor McCabe. She's not a physical player. She's not a real athletic player. Nobody's going to argue that she is. But she had a couple of really good rebounds tonight. I know 2 rebounds for Kachine Alexander is nothing. But I'm just, notice the effort on the glass.
It's relative, okay? It's relative to who you're talking about.
Yep. And I can see why they defer toward, I can see why Jan would defer toward the older player, because it was either going to be Taylor McCabe, Aaliyah Guyton, or Taylor Strimlow. Tegan Mulaney's giving you nothing right now other than a few spot minutes, and they've proven they don't want to go with O'Grady and Stolke on the court at the same time. So Taylor hits a big 3 down the stretch, and Iowa sinks the Gophers in the barn. And this is a Gopher team that's much better this year than they have been. This is a really good win. And for more on this win, we are going to get to our callers. So, folks, hang tight. If you are wanting to join the show via StreamYard, you can do so by means of the StreamYard link. It's up in the description. We're going to bring in our good friend Kyle Huesmann from HawkeyeReport.com now. And Kyle, I sullied your name, or summoned you, I guess is the right word to use, earlier, because I don't recall a game this season where you had 4 of the 5 starters in double figures, and it really started with the older group, ended with the older group, and there was really no doubt in my mind, with the exception maybe being, again, McCabe or Guyton. But boy, under the circumstances, how big was it to get the production from the older players tonight, in your mind?
Yeah, first off, I think I'd have to look back to see if they've had a night like this. There might have been one other game where it was predominantly a starting lineup scoring night, but it seems like most of the games this season they've had, a bench player that's come in and at least scored a few. And generally, when Addie O'Grady's been coming off the bench, it's been her. But yeah, I mean, it was very important tonight because your bench players just weren't giving you a whole lot. I mean, Taylor Strimlow had a really good mid-range jumper in the first half and a good spot, and finished with 3 rebounds. And Addie did some good things in her 17 minutes, but Aaliyah Guyton didn't give you a whole lot tonight. And as you mentioned, Tegan Mulaney only played 5 minutes. So yeah, it was a night where you needed your players that were in the starting lineup to step up, and they were able to, and especially down the stretch. I thought that was the thing that really stood out to me, is the way the third quarter went. I thought Iowa controlled the pace in the first half, and that showed with the fact that Minnesota turned it over a bit. And then that third quarter, Minnesota got it to their pace of play and were able to get back into the game. But credit to Iowa in the fourth quarter, man, they hit some big shots down the stretch with a number of players, hitting shots. It wasn't the same person, like, the USC game is Lucy and Addie hitting the big shots. Lucy hit a couple of shots. Sita Fulch had a contested 3-pointer late in the shot clock. Taylor McCabe, you mentioned, hit a big shot. Hannah Stolke had a couple of big shots. So that was the thing, is it was everybody stepping up in the late minutes to close out what was a really big win, to get back to 500 in Big Ten play now.
Kyle, talk a little bit about what happened leading up to this game, because I know Kachine commented on it to me pregame, just the challenges with what this team had to face. I know you retweeted, I believe it's Mr. Turner, who takes care of women's basketball communications for for Iowa athletics. Can you kind of give a rundown for fans who aren't aware of what transpired yesterday with the ice storm and how that affected their trip to Minneapolis today?
Yeah, it was actually I caught onto it late today. I had someone reach out to me and let me know that around lunchtime today, 12:30, that they hadn't taken off yet, that they were still waiting to take off. So I pulled up my handy dandy flight app that everybody has when they cover sports, and they had just taken off when I had looked at it. But yeah, yesterday with the ice storm that kind of came through the eastern Iowa, central Iowa part of the country. Iowa tried to fly out yesterday. They got to the airport and thought they were ready to go, and had to de-ice, obviously. And if people have looked at it, Bailey had said that in his tweet that they tried to take off. They had to abort takeoff, going down the runway, which is kind of a scary thing to have happen. They were at the airport for something like 7 or 8 hours. Then they go up to Cedar Rapids, 20 minutes from Iowa City to stay at a hotel. And then they got to the airport today, and they were there another hour and a half before they were able to actually take off. Add in that they went to bed at 1 a.m. Today, actually. They went to bed this morning. Didn't get to Minneapolis until about right around 1 o'clock. So, I mean, you're talking about 6 hours before tip-off. They got to get over to didn't even look like they did shoot-around at Williams Arena. They did it in a practice gym, it looked like, per what they put on Twitter. So we had already talked about, how this game was going to have, maybe a hangover feeling. You got the huge win over USC on Sunday, and now you've got to, refocus and kind of put that win to the side and come on the road to a Minnesota team that's really looking to get a win for their NCAA tournament resume. We talked about how important it was to get off a good start and try to make sure you didn't have that hangover. And then you add in all the travel issues, the 8 hours at the airport, the almost 2 hours at the airport today. That really impacts the way that you're preparing for a game, because the team, the players, they really get into this rhythm of, okay, we're going to arrive on the road the night before, whatever. We're going to get up at this time, we're going to have breakfast this time, we're going to have shoot around at this time. And when that schedule gets thrown off by that much, that can really affect you. In the way that Iowa came out in the first quarter and went up 18-7 there and really took control early. They didn't trail at any point tonight. I thought that was really impressive. By the players, their maturity to handle the situation, and then the coaching staff to make sure that this team was still prepared with everything that went on. So yeah, a really unique situation. I don't know that I've ever heard of a team really hanging out in an airport for 8 hours, and a lot of that was in the plane, trying to see if they could still take off last night. So it's a really unique situation, and really good job by both the players and the coaches to make sure they were still ready to go today.
Well, Mansky reminding everybody, folks, if you're here, it's the first 15 minutes of the show. Be sure you hit the thumbs up button, the like button if you're on YouTube. And, of course, you can catch the replay of this on YouTube, but also by audio, Spotify, Apple, your favorite podcast platforms. We've got a super chat coming in from Bobby. Bobby, thank you. In recognition of our Hawkeye OG getting a shout-out during tonight's broadcast, thanks for being a Hawkeye. Kachine, go Hawks. So appreciate that, Bobby. And, Kyle, the rebounding efforts of this team as a whole, I mean, it starts with Sydney Affolter, but I don't know if you can point at another stat that tells the story more than rebounding. You would think from a on paper perspective, they're going a little smaller than initially you would have thought heading into the year, with O'Grady and Stolke as your 5 and your 4 respectively. They go with Sid at the 4 and Hannah at the 5, but man, Sydney Affolter is such a good rebounder. You can see why she's been compared to a gritty Kachine Alexander back in the day. Just talk about the rebounding efforts and how do you go on the road and go plus 11 with that lineup in that category?
Yeah, I mean, this is the best team that I can remember for a while for Iowa. We just a couple of years ago, we were talking about the Caitlin teams about how rebounding was a weakness and how they need to rebound a lot better in their, even though they were making the Final Four. That was sometimes a weakness of that team. It's a strength of this team. They're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. How many games have they played now? This is 23 games. They've out-rebounded their opponent in 21 of 23 games. And they've won the 2 games that they got out-rebounded in. So it's been really impressive. I mean, plus 11 on the road. And Minnesota has a bigger lineup. Sophie Hart's 6'5", taller than anyone that Iowa can put out there. As tall as Ava Hayden. Mallory Heyer is a fantastic rebounder as well. Grace Graholski at the small forward position is a bigger body than you see normally at the small forward position. So they've got a lineup that should be able to out-rebound some teams, and Iowa just dominated. And you mentioned Sita Fulter. I think without looking around at every single team's roster and their stats, I think Sita Fulter might be the best rebounder under 6 foot in the country. It's incredible to see her go out and put up 14 rebounds in the game. And that's not the first, second, or third time that she's put up double-digit rebounds this season. So for her to come out and do that, and then obviously Hannah Stolke had 7. But really, it's kind of all around, like what you were saying. I mean, Taylor McCabe only finishes with 2, but she had a couple of really good box outs that maybe she didn't grab the rebound, but someone else did. Kylie Feuerbach had a couple of good box outs. She finishes with 4 rebounds. Lucy Olson grabs 4. So you've got a couple of those players that it's going to be Sita Fulter and Hannah Stolke every night grabbing the bulk of the rebounds. But Kylie Feuerbach coming in and grabbing 4, Lucy with 4, and then you add in Taylor Strumlow with 3. That's really how you rack them up, is when everybody else can grab a couple more. And even if it is just boxing out and making sure, even if I don't get the rebound, someone else can. That's what Iowa's done really well this year. And anytime you out-rebound someone by 11 or double digits in general, you're going to have a really good chance to win. And that was impressive tonight. They held 6 offensive rebounds for Minnesota. Iowa had 11 offensive rebounds. That's the other thing that Iowa's done much better this year than in years past, is get on the offensive glass and get some second chance points. It seems like some of them are just those gritty rebounds. Like you go back to Sunday, Addie O'Grady had that huge putback in the fourth quarter. That was a Sita Fulter just getting a hand into the fray and just tipping it right to Addie O'Grady. So they get some of those too, where it's not grabbing the offensive rebound, it's just tipping it out or tipping it to a teammate. So the rebounding has been impressive this year, but today, I mean, especially in the first half, forcing some turnovers. Minnesota was second in the country in fewest turnovers per game at 10.2. They had 10 in the first half, only finished with 11. But I thought that was huge in the first half to be able to turn Minnesota over and I was able to get a lead off of some of those turnovers. So I thought they did some of those things, the rebounding, the forcing the turnovers, and then hitting big shots late. They did some of those smaller details that everybody talks about, the shooting, the scoring, but the rebounding, the forcing a few turnovers, and hitting those big shots late were some of the things that were able to get them this win. When maybe it wasn't the most perfect 40-minute effort, but they come away with a game that they really controlled for most of it.
Some hot takes, some interesting comments. The chat's on fire tonight. John says, our offensive flow is so much better when T. Stremlow is playing. Interesting. That's interesting. That's an interesting observation. I don't know that either of you would agree with that, Kachine. I think you would not, although she's playing.
Watching the same game.
But she makes good plays. She's got potential. She's going to get there. It's a really nice job of keeping her head up at the end of the half. I see so many players, specifically on the women's side, specifically on this team throughout this season, in my opinion, waste last-second situations at the end of a half or end of a quarter. And Taylor Stremlow, I believe she grabbed the rebound with maybe 5-6 seconds left, head up, gets the outlet pass to Lucy, I believe, who then got it to Sydney Falter for the and one. Big play heading into halftime. And we talked about how just the other night, people watched the Iowa men fall against Purdue. Hawkeye men had a 5-point lead, big swing at the end of the first half. Not saying that decided the game, but I do think there are games where momentum at the end of a half, in some cases, maybe on the women's side, end of quarters, does play a factor. Patrick wants to know if the freshmen are hitting the February wall, or are the upperclassmen just stepping up more? Kachine, I'll let you sound off on this one. You kind of alluded to this earlier. You think the veterans just played better tonight.
Yeah, I think that's really it. The veterans have just overshadowed the freshmen really the last 2 games. But I think that's really it. It's just the fact that we haven't seen our veterans actually step up. It's been freshmen making the bigger plays and coming in clutch down the stretch and things like that. So we've kind of shifted our focus, or at least the veterans have decided to shift the focus back onto them.
And I think that's what you would want, right? I mean, you want your veterans to be the ones that are making the plays. And if you do have to turn to an Aaliyah Guyton one night to hit a couple of threes and make a couple of plays, or a Taylor Stremlow, that's fine. But the games early in the year where we were talking about, hey, in the first half, it was the freshman group that came in and led that run. That's great. That's fantastic to see the potential in the freshman group. But you don't want to have too many games where you come away going, oh, the group that really helped turn it was the freshmen. Because once you get into February and March and you're in these close games and you're playing the USCs and the UCLAs and the Minnesotas and you're grinding out games, it's got to be the veterans. You can't rely on the freshmen to come in a game like tonight and hit those big shots down the stretch, because they're not ready for it. There are some freshmen that can do it, But you want the veterans to step up, and tonight they did. I thought the one player that we haven't mentioned yet, I thought Kylie Feuerbach had a solid game. Was 4-4 at the line on a night where Iowa didn't shoot it from the line real well. Hit a three, finished with 13 points, had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, only one turnover.
Aggressive from the beginning.
What'd you say?
She was aggressive from the beginning.
Yeah, she had a couple of takes to the basket.
Defense, but
yeah, I thought, and I maybe she gained some confidence from the USC game. Did really well on Juju Watkins early in the game. That could be, maybe that's a shot of confidence. Say, hey, I just guarded the best player, one of the best players in the country. But yeah, I thought she had a couple of good takes. 2 of those free throws came from a really good take to the basket that she got fouled on. That's the Kylie Feuerbach that when she can do that, and at least she doesn't have to score 13 a night, but she can knock down a 3 and at least be a threat to take it to the hoop. That really changes the dynamic of that starting lineup, because you can then afford a Taylor McCabe to maybe not have the greatest of nights. But we've talked about it before. When Taylor McCabe's not shooting it well and Kylie's maybe not as aggressive, you're talking about 2 players in the starting lineup that aren't contributing a lot, and that's when they've had to turn towards the freshmen to maybe get a little bit more production. But I thought tonight Kylie was a lot better.
I want to draw attention before we let Kyle get to his work over at HawkeyeReport.com. Everybody gives him a follow, or should give him a follow if you haven't already, at Huesmann Kyle on X, and you can check out his team's great work, including Iowa women's basketball coverage over at HawkeyeReport.com, part of the On3 family. I want to share the tweet that Mr. Huesmann blasted out here just minutes ago, and that is right here. He says, I firmly believe that as long as Iowa handles business at home against Wisconsin and Rutgers, they will be in the NCAA tourney. Anything more will improve their seeding. Kyle, you've made it big when somebody's reading your tweet while you're on the air. So, anyways, drawing attention to the comment, because you tweeted this pregame. It's not like you were just riding the hot wave here. You think that what you said here, they're in really, really good shape. You have a good feel on bracketology, on the bubble, etc. Explain this to people. I mean, for one, Minnesota came into this game unranked. They were receiving votes. They were, what were they, like 16-5, 18-5, something like that, heading into the game. Their overall record's great. Their non-conference wasn't phenomenal, but they were above Iowa in the Big Ten standings. Tell fans why this was such a big win on the road.
Yeah, I don't know that it was necessarily – I mean, it was partially this game, but I think it was just a culmination of, really this whole 4-game winning streak. And I'll say, I mean, I went on record on Hawkeye after they were – I don't think this team's going to make the NCAA tournament. Just looking at the road ahead and we talked about it on here, what they had to do in road games. I mean, that they now won against Washington, now Minnesota on the road. I thought it was stacked up, really tough for them, but they've come out, they won at Washington. They beat USC, now they beat Minnesota. I think, with the Rutgers win, if they can beat Rutgers and beat Wisconsin, which they will be big favorites to do, probably 15, 20 point favorites to do, that get them to 8-10 in Big Ten play, 18-11 overall. No one on the bubble is going to have a win like USC, and I would say no one on the bubble will have a win close to what the USC win will be. And I just keeping an eye on the bubble and looking at some of the teams on the bubble. It's a weak year on the bubble. There's a lot of teams on the outside looking in right now that just don't have great record, have great resumes, which is why you look at a team like an Iowa or even Washington. Even when they were losing games, they were continually in the last 4 in, because those teams on the outside that were looking in just didn't have a resume that was better than an Iowa or Washington or even an Iowa State who's on the bubble as well, even though they were still losing some games. So I think it's just kind of a balance between Iowa has now picked it up, won some big games, but the bubble itself is just not real great this year. So I do think 8-10 in Big Ten play would get them into the NCAA tournament. I think there's certainly other years where it wouldn't. I think even last year, Washington State's a team that was right around that record in the Pac-12, which was a fine conference and really good net ranking. They didn't make the NCAA tournament. So I think it's this team did this and didn't get in. I think this year, with the way the bubble is looking, 8-10 with a win over USC would be fine. Now, I responded to someone that responded to that tweet that said, I don't know if that would be enough. I don't expect Iowa to finish 8-10. I think they will get. I think they're going to get Nebraska on the road on Monday. I think that's a game that they're going to want to go get after the way that it ended at home. And Michigan is winnable on the road. I think they get one of those two and get to a 9-9 record, which would easily be them at that point. But I just thought that a win tonight and then taking care of business in those last 2 games. Looking at what I know about the rest of the bubble, I thought that was going to be enough. So yeah, I thought this was a win that Jan's not going to go into the locker room and say, "Hey guys, I think we just locked it up as long as we take care of business." But I do think that the pressure has certainly been very different now compared to a couple weeks ago when we were wondering if this team was going to miss the NCAA tournament. Now they're comfortable that they're going to begin. So yeah, really credit to Jan and players that when that losing streak hit, and whether it was us or the national media saying, "I don't know if this team's going to make the NCAA tournament," they turned it around when they had to, and now they found themselves in a much better position going into these last 6 games.
Kyle Huesmann of HawkeyeReport.com. Kyle, we always appreciate your time. The one comment in the chat from Jason, he wants to know if you've heard from any of those recruits that were there Sunday. Said the photos looked like they were psyched. Have you had any word with the big recruiting visits over the weekend?
Yeah, I've got a couple of articles up on our site. I spoke with Chastain, the 2027 guard. There's an article up on there. I talked with Addie Deal, who's obviously signed to come to Iowa. Had some comments from her. Hoping to get a couple more up by the end of this coming weekend. There's a couple of people I'm still trying to get in contact with, so I'm pretty sure I'll have a couple more up. But yeah, I've got a couple up on the site right now. From the sounds of it, the recruits were very impressed. Both the recruits and their families were impressed by the environment at Iowa. Heard that some of them were saying it was up there with the best environments they've ever been in for any sport. So Iowa winning that game and being able to have the crowd in for 40 minutes certainly helped. We'll have to see if it impacts them in a way that allows them or wants them to commit to Iowa. But yeah, I'll have a couple more articles up hopefully by next week on the recruits.
Kyle Huesmann, HawkeyeReport.com. Kyle, we appreciate your time, sir. We'll talk to you after the big game in Lincoln.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kyle. All right, folks, here's the deal. No pun intended. We were just talking about Addie Deal. So there's going to be a lot of puns here in the next couple of years, by the way, Kachine. A lot of puns on this show. A lot of puns across Hawkeye Nation. Kachine's going to be loving it. Loving every minute of it. Folks, I'm going to be cutting Kachine loose here in about 20 minutes. So we're going to get to your calls, but they're going to be quick fire. If we get to our super chat goal, which is in the YouTube live chat, if we hit our goal, I am committing myself to hour 2. If not, I will likely sail off into the sunset with Kachine, or maybe stay an extra 15 minutes. But if we want an extra, 45 minutes to an hour to sound off right here on the postgame show, we know the goals we need to hit. It's in the live chat on YouTube. Tony, he says, where else can you get someone breaking down Iowa basketball in a Snuggie? Very true. Best postgame show on the internet, not just because of the Snuggie, but the Snuggie helps the cause for everybody. Julie says Kachine is the black and gold standard of excellence.
Oh, Julie, I like that. Favorite comment of the night.
How many people were tweeting at you after that shout out? I saw at least a half a dozen, and I'm not even you. A lot of people tweeting at you. That was pretty cool.
It was.
Kyle wants to know if Minnesota was out coached, Kachine.
Yes. Only because I felt like they didn't use their height to their advantage.
Okay.
The key, never mind. I can't say the key to us because I don't need nobody going on YouTube and watching. So never mind.
Folks, we're going to take our first caller here for cash in just one moment. We want to thank RTI Threads. And how about this, folks? It is Super Bowl week. And one of RTI Threads' own, Cooper DeJean, will be taking the field as a starting DB for the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend. Shop his store and his RTI Threads apparel over at cd3-store.1rti.com. You can also just go to rtithreads.com/NIL and click on Cooper DeJean. But the link is in our description. You can check out the Coop shirt, the Eagles Coop shirt. It's in the description of this video. Check it out. Limited time. Buy it today. Great for you female fans, male fans, whatever. I know it's under the male merchandise, but great T-shirt with Cooper DeJean. Celebrate the big Super Bowl week and hopefully a Super Bowl victory for Cooper DeJean. Sorry, Chiefs fans. Again, cd3-store.1rti.com. All right, let's go to our first caller who's been on hold for almost a half an hour. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Kachine Alexander. Who's on the line?
Hi, Corey, Kachine. This is Aiden from St. Paul.
Hey, Aiden.
St. Paul, Minnesota?
Yep. Yep, we were at the game. Me and my fiance, we were at the game tonight. Both Iowa alums, but we moved up here after college for work, and we try to make it to Iowa games when we get a chance up here.
Nice.
First of all, I wanted to say is that I'm sure you've talked about it on the show before, but Williams Arena is a really cool historic venue, and I mean, I can't imagine there's too many places like that left to watch a game, and that was a great Minnesota crowd, and their fans are usually nice to us Iowa fans. Wait.
Well, hold on a second. Aiden, I don't normally cut people off, but you just said they're normally nice to Iowa fans. I've been to a number of Big Ten road venues, and might I just say this, the student section at past men's games, in my opinion, has been one of the rudest, most brutal student sections of any Big Ten school that I've attended. Like
I was getting to that. The "We Hate Iowa" chant is always a feature. Yep. Which I'm not going to say Iowa students are more mature or nicer really than any other Big Ten school, but I think Iowa has the right number of syllables and an emphasis on the right place to lead to those chants. And if I might add, the spelling out Minnesota, which takes about 2 minutes for their fight song, is also pretty goofy in my opinion.
Well, what I think is goofy is the young people in cow costumes. That's what I think is, because they're the Minnesota Gophers, but because it's the barn, they feel the need to dress up. And I know it's tradition, but and what is ski-u-ma? Can somebody explain that to me, Kachine? Can you explain it to me?
I am not a Gopher. I have no idea.
You grew up in the area.
That doesn't mean anything. I don't know nothing about it.
So you don't know what ski-u-ma means. All right. Anyways.
You know what? I'll figure it out for you. Keep going.
It's just some nonsense phrase. I think they've been saying it for like 120 years or something like that, but no deeper meaning than that as far as I'm aware.
Well, we're appreciative that you were representing the black and gold, even though you're from St. Paul, Aiden. Was the crowd? Did you have an idea of what percentage of the crowd was Hawkeye versus Gopher? We could hear the "Let's Go Hawks" chants on the broadcast toward the end.
Oh, I'd say maybe 60-40, slightly more Minnesota fans, but they weren't. It seemed like every time Minnesota got the momentum, Iowa, hit them right back. So the crowd noise didn't play too much of a factor, I thought, ultimately.
Well, good stuff, Aiden. Anything else for Kachine before we let you slide?
I don't think so. Long-time listener, first-time caller, so appreciate you taking my call, and have a good night, both of you.
Appreciate it, Aiden.
Thanks, you too. We love the Minnesota connection.
There's a lot of Hawkeye fans up there, right? Just like there's a lot in Omaha and, in Chicago and in the surrounding areas. So let's go to our next caller. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Kachine Alexander. Who's on the line?
Hello, yes, this is Jacob. How you doing?
Good, Jacob. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. I just want to ask a question about, it's kind of been talked about a little bit tonight about the culture at Iowa, and more specifically towards starting, not starting, because, for example, Stremlo was playing a little bit more, and Teagan was playing a little bit more, and Guyton wasn't playing at all, and Addy was starting, and then it kind of changed where then Addy kind of wasn't starting, Teagan was getting no minutes, and then Stremlo's minutes were down. And the more specific question I have for that is, how was Iowa the coaching staff able to handle that? Because we're all human, but everybody on the bench does not seem upset. They don't seem discouraged that maybe their minutes are going down. They seem just as excited as they are when they're playing versus when they're not playing. They're cheering on everybody. Is this just a massive focus when they recruit to find players who can fit what the culture they want? Because it's nice to see how everybody's able to really stick together, even though everybody's minutes or whatever are changing.
Kachine, do you have some comment on that?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head is what I was going to say. Anyways, Iowa doesn't just recruit talent. They recruit overall good people, selfless people. And they do their research. They don't just talk to your coaches. They talk to anybody and everybody that would know you, not just a basketball player. So, and Hawkeye fans that's been around a long time, there's never been a player who has just been an asshole. There's never been a player who wasn't a nice person, who didn't go out of their way for fans or anybody for that matter. There's a reason for it. They choose those kinds of people. So much so that even in the coaching world, you could be watching a kid and you'll say, that's an Iowa kid. That's how much culture, the Iowa culture has transitioned even to the coaching world where we're out recruiting and you'll hear coaches say that.
Is that also why they don't lose in this day and age of,
Correct.
transfer portal and Neal deals, that they just don't lose anybody?
Yep.
Okay.
For that reason, because players they're actually happy there, playing or not.
Yes, and that's the other thing I wanted to ask is what are they doing to make that environment for the players?
What do you mean?
So
like what makes them happy?
An environment. Yes, not just happy, but engaged.
When you have coaches who care about you, not just the player. They take you to lunch. They check in on you. They know your family. All of those things. They become your family. So if you feel like that, why would you're not going to leave your family just because you're not getting playing time?
Yeah, in response, there's several people in the chat. Jimmy T, Ava Hayden, MIA, shaking my head. I see some people questioning about Hayden. Sarah says, "Will Hayden hit the portal?" Or Hayden? Why am I calling her Hayden? Will Hayden hit the portal with no minutes? I would be shocked if that happens. Look, that's going to be her. That's going to be her spot next year, assuming Hannah can transition to the 4, which we thought she was going to this year. But Addie's done. So yeah. I don't know why she would leave. There'd be no reason for her to leave.
Even if she didn't get another single minute the rest of the year, she's not going to.
I agree. Anything else, Jacob?
No troll game tonight. I'm going to leave that alone tonight.
Good, because the Mavs beat the Celtics on the road. The Mavs beat the Celtics on the road tonight.
We're not starting this again. Go ahead, Jacob.
Kachine, the Mavs beat the Celtics on the road.
Oh, my God.
Okay, fine. Whatever you do.
We can talk about it on the 26th when they play the Lakers. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah. I do have a WNBA question, and if this isn't the right form for it, that's fine. But the question I had is...
Only if it has to do with the Fever.
Well, Fever adjacent.
All right, go ahead.
So the Fever is obviously able to bring on so many players. Okay, cool. Uh-huh. We all want that. We're all happy for that. But why do you think there's been such an exodus from the Aces? That's a pretty big exodus from the Aces. What is going on there where their roster is almost completely changed this offseason when they appeared on paper to still have a really, really good team? Why did so many of their players just literally just bounce?
Kelsey Plum, that everybody knew she was leaving, and I don't think there's anything wrong. I think she just wanted to get out of the shadows, which is totally fine. I think everybody else were role players; they're replaceable. So that's how I'd put it. Everybody else that left are replaceable.
Okay, well, perfect. That's all the questions I had. I appreciate you guys taking the time to take my call, and go Lakers.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thanks, Jacob. Hey, by the way, I believe my stance on that is also go Lakers. Like, I have no way to not. There's no way I can not root for Luka Doncic wherever
Good
he's
for
at.
you.
I have no choice.
Good for you. I'm
Like,
happy for you.
ethically, I have to root for him. Still a Mavs fan because
Good
it's
for you.
not the players or Jason Kidd's fault. Still a Mavs fan. And if they win a championship this year, I'll be gloating as much as ever right here on this show. All right, let's go to our next caller. Huh? Say it again.
Who's next?
Jan Jensen's next, or someone posing as Jan. Don't ever doubt me again, fools. That's not really Jan,
That's
but
hilarious.
that's super chat from someone claiming to be Jan. Thank you, Jan. Appreciate the super chat. D. Rolfson. Yes, outcoached. Do they make Hawk Snuggies? This question has been asked.
But they're not good material. They're like paper thin. It's very frustrating.
I see a potential branding deal with.
So irritating. Like, why is it so thin? Anywho.
All right. My wheels are turning now, Cash. Thank you, Robinson. Lemansky, flowers thrown Cash's way. Wonderful. A Hawkeye 100%. Corey.
Yeah, I'm through and through, baby.
Say it again.
I said, I sure am through and through.
Through and through. How many Gopher games did you go to growing up? Not too many? Enough?
Enough.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, because I was like Lindsay Whalen and that crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
All right.
a good time.
David is in the queue, and he wants to know about Hannah making the transition next year to the 4. So let's add David into the mix. David, welcome to the show, David.
Well, thank you very much. I live in Chicago. Have been following the Hawkeyes for 6 or 7 years. Certainly, it was because Caitlin hit the news. I'm now a fan of the WNBA as well. I catch games as often as I can.
You and how many thousands of others?
I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure I'm not alone. The women's game is exceptionally entertaining. It's a clash of styles even in the NBA. And that's kind of what I miss with the NBA game. It's become so formulaic. It's the same thing every night. Teams do the same thing every night. And I've always loved NCAA basketball over pros simply because it really is a clash of styles every game. Mm-hmm. Watched the Tennessee-UConn game today. It was just amazing.
How about Tennessee knocking off the Huskies tonight, Cash? Do you have any comment on that? That's the Tennessee team that handed Iowa's first loss.
I love that.
Yeah, they wore them out. You could see the fatigue. You could see the fatigue in UConn in that second half. They were just.
Ain't got enough bodies for that.
Yeah, Tennessee throws too many people at you.
David, what'd you think of Sydney Falter and the grit inside from her and Hannah, especially in the glass?
Yes, no, Sydney is probably one of my favorite players on the team and has been for 3 years. She literally does everything that's needed. It's whether it's battling on the glass or, taking the ball to the rim when it just has to, it has to happen. You've got to get a drive, willing to take contact, and she's a clutch free throw shooter. I mean, when I see her at the line late in the game, I think I have more confidence with her at the line than any other player on the team.
That's one stat we haven't brought up, and I want to ask you about it, Cash, because I'm glad David mentioned it. But, Sydney Falter earns our RTI Threads Player of the Game tonight. Of course, shop RTI Threads. We'll talk about them and show everybody their website and how you can purchase a Cooper DeJean's Eagles customized logo shirt here later. But Sydney Falter, 13 points, 3 of 5 from 3, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, 14 rebounds, also had 2 assists, 2 steals. Again, our RTI Threads Player of the Game. Everybody else, Kachine, in large part struggled at the line. It's kind of been an up and down year if you look at free throws. What do you make of that, and how concerning is it that they shoot 64% on the road? But is it also like, well, they shot that number, they missed 8 free throws and still won? How do you view that at this point in the season? You would think that as your three-point shooting improves, your free throw shooting would improve as well. seems like they're shooting threes better now than they were earlier in the year, but they're not shooting free throws as well.
Free throws are a tricky thing. It's not something you can really work on in the middle of the season, like, because you got so many other things to pay attention to. You can still make it an emphasis, but like working on it is very low on the totem pole. But we have been up and down. We've had games where free throws have lost us games, and we've had games where they've won us games. That's just the up and down season that we've had in general in many aspects. I wouldn't put too much into it because there's so many other things we need to worry about. And just try to get the girls to work on their free throws when it's not during practice time, and hope that they do it.
Yeah, I will say this: the Iowa bigs. You look at Iowa's misses; they missed 8 free throws. 6 of those 8 came from the Iowa bigs. Hannah Stulke was 3 of 7 from the free throw line. Addison O'Grady was 2 of 4. I texted you during the game, Kachine, and I'll admit this. Hannah almost earned our player of the game tonight, but I texted you during the game and said I was frustrated with Hannah's half-court offense. She, I thought, really pushed the pace as the game went on, and that obviously she plays a lot better when Iowa's playing faster. When it slowed down in the half-court, she is limited. You didn't feel Addie was playing her best offensive game in the post either. But if Hannah's going to be playing a half-court game, she's got to make free throw shots.
I can agree with that statement.
So 3 of 7. I mean, she could have had 20 plus tonight, and she would have been our RTI Threads player of the game if she was 20 plus with 7 boards. So, anyways, free throw shooting something to follow, especially as teams try to slow Iowa down at the half court. David,
Looking forward. Will Hannah be able to make that transition successfully? We need Ava on the court next year.
She's not doing it this year. Kachine, you have confidence. Hey, she hit a nice little baseline jumper
from
tonight.
The corner.
Her jumper is not ugly, right? Like, it's not far off. It's not something that you have to completely change. So yeah, it's definitely possible, and I think they have a good chance.
Do you think that they because she doesn't even try to shoot out there? Do you think that's due to lack of confidence? You think coaching staff has just said, we don't want you really doing that? How would you, because Addison finds her way out there and makes her little mid-range shots.
Well, she's never at the high post, like, ever. So I don't know if that's part of our offense in the 4 spot is not at the high post. It's on the 3-point line. And from there, she's not really a threat. So
I'm talking about when she's at the 5 position. She's not.
No, at the 5 position, it don't even matter. You can say your butt on the block for all I care. So, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, it's not like Addison doesn't find her way into the mid-range.
Of course, because she wants to shoot. There's a difference. Yes.
Yeah.
You move yourselves in different places. There's many ways for you as a post player, a 5, to move. You can move up and down the lane. You can move out to the short corner, or you can go across the lane. So now you just are shooting another layup. It just all depends on where you're most comfortable. Addie is more comfortable at the high post, so that's where she's going to go, or to the short corner.
David, anything else for Kachine before we let slide? We appreciate you calling in.
Oh, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good call from David from Chicago. And Drew with the super chat here in the live chat. He says, what's your prediction? This is for Cash, not me. What's your prediction looking at the remaining schedule? So I don't know how familiar you are with the remaining schedule.
I'm pulling it up.
All right, let's pull it up.
Drew.
Here's the remaining schedule for anybody that doesn't know, including Kachine. So they get Nebraska next, of course, followed by Rutgers back at home, then at Ohio State, home against the top-ranked Bruins.
I don't want to.
At Michigan, home against Wisconsin. That's a tricky schedule. Kachine.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. No.
That's a tricky schedule. They're 500 now. Can they split? Kyle thinks they're going to split those remaining games. Let's see, 1, 2. So yeah, they got 8 left. No, they got 6 left. What am I thinking? 6 left. They're 6 and 6.
And he's
so
saying 3 and 3.
Yeah, he's saying 3 and 3. I think. Well, at least 9 and I thought maybe he didn't say that. I know he said better than Well, no, 3-3 would put you at 9-9. So I think he did predict that. So he thinks they're going to win at Nebraska, and then Rutgers and Wisconsin should be wins. At a minimum, with the Rutgers and Wisconsin games, Cash, can we agree they should at least go 2-4? At least.
At minimum. Bare minimum.
And then can they steal one at Nebraska, at Ohio State, at Michigan, or home against UCLA? That's going to be the question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was easy. That was easy, folks. All right. We have got possibly our last caller for Kachine. We got a couple of people waiting here, but we'll see.
I got 8 minutes, so rapid fire.
All right, let's go to our next caller. Welcome to Iowa Postgame with Kachine Alexander. Who's on the line?
This is Tony from Sioux Falls.
Tony from Sioux Falls? Wait a minute. Is this the Tony from Sioux Falls?
Yeah, my numbers guy. Go ahead.
Why are you on the phone, Tony? Why aren't you on StreamYard?
Why are you worried about what he doing?
I'm moving, so all of my stuff is packed up and all that.
Oh, I'm about to
Also,
move too.
why are you so quiet? Are there people that are asleep or something?
Well, I just got my 5-month-old to sleep, so I'm trying to be quiet.
I understand.
I just had two quick things. Number one, Kachine, how excited are you to see all those streaming games coming up on Peacock and Big Ten Plus?
You know what's funny, guys? I was about to cancel my Peacock subscription. I was like, you know what? Let me see how many more of these games we got left. And I was like, dang it! So it's still there, still holding.
And then I just had a lighthearted question I wanted to end on it. Is you obviously coached a lot in the North and lived a lot in the North. What is your best travel story with coaching at like North Dakota State and Concordia? Do you guys have any interesting travel stories like we just had today?
Worst travel story of my life. I was actually coaching Division II basketball at Concordia St. Paul, and we were going to the NCAA tournament, and it was down in Arkansas, Little Rock. And we went 6 o'clock in the morning was our flight. We flew to Detroit. Worst airport ever. We got delayed upon delayed upon delayed. And then our flight got canceled to where we needed to go. It was a small town. So then we ended up getting a flight out that same day, though, to a place that's like 5 hours away. So we're like, all right. We get there to the airport late now. We're talking 8 p.m., 9 o'clock. Mind you, we've been up forever. Get to the airport, no bags. We are 5 hours from our place with no bags. We have a game the next day. So we're at that point, we're like, well, what the hell are we going to do? We can't come back. And so they said there was one more flight that was coming in because it was delayed, this, that, and the third. So our bags will be on there. So we're like, okay, let's go find something to eat, etc. So we drive to IHOP or something. And all of a sudden, I look out the window and our bus driver looks like he's looking for something. And I'm like, what's happening? Right? So I go outside and our bus driver, the door will not open. So we are stranded at IHOP because the bus door will not open.
There are worse places to be stranded.
I don't know where I was at. So stranded is stranded to me. So mind you, we still haven't gotten our bags. We still have to go back to the airport to get our bags. So I'm like, okay, what do you need? What do you need? How do we get in? And he's like, well, there's this one little window, but I don't know who can fit in there. I take my smallest kid. She's like 5'2". So I'm like, maybe we could get her through this window. We finally get her through the driver's side window. She swiggles through, opens the door from the inside, and we're all like screaming, excited. Woohoo! We go back, we get our bags, we think everything is great. So we start our trek, 5-hour trek to where we're supposed to go. And halfway through the trek, my director of operations is like, we're going the wrong way. And I'm like, what the hell do you mean we're going the wrong way? And she's like on her phone, and she's like, this isn't the right way. So I'm like, well, go freaking tell them what's going on. She goes up there. They have a conversation. Next thing I know, the bus hits a Yui. We went 2 hours out of our way.
What?
Yes.
How does that happen?
2 hours out of our way. We end up getting to our destination at 7 a.m. and our game was at 2. We were exhausted, but we made it work and we won. So it's fine. That was the worst. That was the worst. The worst travel of my entire life. I was exhausted. We didn't practice. We didn't do nothing. We barely even went over scout.
You did win though?
We did. Yeah, we ended up going to the Final Four. We won out in that region and then ended up going to the Final Four. We were exhausted. We didn't go through anything. We was like, listen, we just come in here. We gonna play. That's what it is. We gonna play. We gonna do what we do, and that's that. We focused on solely on us. We didn't focus on nobody else. And that was it. It was the craziest story of my life. Like, it was like one thing after the other. Are you kidding? Like, are you kidding? What else? But yeah, it was a great time. It all worked out because we hosted the regional trophy. Like, it was great. So now I can tell the story because it worked out. But could you imagine if we lost the first game? Oh my God, that would be horrible.
I'm trying to think back a few years ago, the Michigan men's team. Do you remember when they had issues with the plane? They had to like emergency land or something like that, and they didn't get their luggage. So they played the game in their practice jerseys. And
yes, I remember that.
Do you remember that? I think it was the
Big Ten. I do remember that.
It's just interesting somehow how people respond to those situations.
You do a little bit because it's almost like, all right, listen, we done been through hell. We might as well make something out of it.
Right.
It's usually how it goes. We might as well make something out of it since we're here. So it can go either way.
All right, quick fire. Let's see.
Since I told my story, I'll stay a little longer to get through the calls. Go ahead.
Okay, well, we only check your phone, Kachine. I want to go quick fire here. Annie, I think this is Annie from New York, says, hooray for Hannah on reaching 1,000 points. Absolutely. And Hawk, well, I'm not going to even read the username. Hit the like button. Smash that like button, folks. It is much appreciated. Do that right now. And by the way, Amanda says you have to hit the like button if your favorite team has ever beaten UConn. So if you're a Tennessee Vol fan, you hit the like button. And, oh, by the way, if you're a Hawkeye fan, you hit the like button. Thanks to Gabby Marshall and Caitlin Clark and that crew in the tournament last year. Folks, if you have not subscribed to the show, we do this each and every week throughout the rest of women's basketball postgame coverage, or postgame, I should say, season postgame coverage for every game. And then, of course, for men's basketball as well and into tournament time. Real quick before we get to our next caller, and if you have any super chats or comments for Cash before we wrap things up, we certainly will get to those. But do want to share, I talked about this earlier, want to share the Cooper DeJean apparel line, specifically this product that we've been promoting this week. If you go to his website, which is in the description, simply click on men's, okay? Even though we're talking T-shirts for men or women, click on men's clothing here, upper left-hand corner, and then you'll see the officially licensed Cooper DeJean Coop T-shirt, Eagles style, right here. And you can pick your size, customize. Check it out, folks. Great stuff and a great company. Official Cooper DeJean gear. Again, visit rtithreads.com, or you can just go to cd3-store.1rti.com. Again, links are in the description. If you haven't visited rtithreads.com/NIL, you can basically shop all these different athletes for men's basketball, for baseball, etc. Caller, we're putting you on hold. Man, people call in and then they just hang up. They think they're going to get in front. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, rtithreads.com/NIL. Buy your Cooper DeJean Super Bowl apparel, Eagles apparel, through RTI Threads today. All right, we have got Corey in the chat. Corey, welcome.
How's everybody doing this evening?
We're doing great. How are you?
My heart is full of joy. Gino had his head down with his loss tonight, which did my heart well. Gino bashing our girl Caitlin, saying she doesn't have what it takes physically. She's not fast enough to get by people, and she won't be effective in the WNBA. So, Gino,
you sure that wasn't AI?
Well, I mean, it could be, but I don't think so.
Okay.
I sense hate in that guy. So anyway, Kachine, you coached at Concordia in St. Paul.
Sure did. That was my first coaching stop.
We may have gone through this before. My best buddy went to college up there, so I used to go up there. We built a wall out of Coors Light Extra Gold cans back in the day when Coors Light Extra Gold was popular. Anyway, just Caitlin Clark is so authentic. I want to throw this out there. So they had the Chamber of Commerce or whatever it was in downtown Indy, and the bunch of 1,000 business owners in a conference today, and they asked Caitlin, "So do you feel the Hoosier hospitality?" And she says, "Yeah, I do." They're like, "Do you think that people coming in here are gonna like this? You know, Hoosier hospitality?" She says, "Yeah." She says, "It's nice. It's not as nice as Iowa, but it's nice." And everybody in the room was like, "Ooh." So get ready for some all-out effort from the Indiana Hoosiers next time we got to face them. Anyway, that said, I'm sorry, but Kachine, have you ever seen this team rebound like this and box out like this, where the ball bounces multiple times and no one can get to it because we got it sealed? And what was different about tonight? Were we player man to man? Is that what was the
No,
difference
it
tonight?
has nothing to do with that. It's all focus. That's it. When you're boxing out is not, it's focus, because you have to remember to do it. Turn, put a body on somebody, hit them, turn, put a body on somebody. So we've been relatively good in boxing out this whole season. Now today was, I would say, exceptional in regards to that. But we've that's always been, I felt like, something where I'm like, oh, we box out pretty well. For especially us being undersized, you have to. So yeah.
I mean, to me, that was just elite. I haven't seen, I mean, the ball bounced and no one could get to it. We had it sealed. And then, of course, you got to break for the ball and get it. Anyway, what's your take on these freshmen? Do you think that they're hitting a little bit of a sophomore slump where they kind of were playing with no pressure, and now that they're getting into some bigger games, they're starting to feel a little pressure? And did you go through that experience? If you did, how many games does it take to work through that? Or how do you work through something like that? When I look at, some of these, I mean, Aaliyah, Stremlow, well, early on, Tegan, just playing lights out as freshmen. And now it's like maybe there's a little bit of a lump in the throat for a period of time here. What's that like for them, and how do they get through it?
I don't think it's them. I think it's just our veterans are stepping up more. They're overshadowing them like they should have been doing all season. I do think that our freshmen will be fine because that's just who they are. There's a reason why there isn't really a thing with freshman slumps, because they're freshmen. They're supposed to have that. So there's not really more like a sophomore slump. Like if you have a fantastic freshman year and then all of a sudden you kind of go downhill because you get, complacent, etc. But freshmen are usually supposed to be like this anyways. We've just been a little bit lucky.
Corey?
Yeah.
Any final words for Cash? I'm cutting you short tonight, buddy.
Okay. Last question.
Yep.
What's your percentage, if you're a betting woman, what's your percentage of a bet that Hannah plays the 4 next year based on that little 12-footer she hit over in the flat on the baseline down there
85%.
tonight? It looked pretty good. What's your odds? What percentage of chance does Hannah play the 4 and Ava play the 5 next year?
85.
What's that?
85.
85% chance. So Hannah, if you're listening, get your tail out there and practice those little baseline jumpers like you did tonight.
She's got to be able to make a 3 too. I think she's got to be able to make a 3.
But here's the other thing,
she's
guys, that
done
we're not seeing on the other side, is that this also gives the coaches an entire summer, off season, and everything to fit the offense around their players. I think they went in thinking, okay, what's the easiest offense to keep, which is the same offense you've been had. So now that you have a season under your belt, you've kind of got out all the kinks that you may need to get out. Now you've got time to really sit and think about what you got. So you never know. We may not be running a 4-out next year. Who knows?
Corey, appreciate you being here, sir. Always love the chat.
All righty.
Will you be with us for men's post Saturday?
Yes, sir. And shout out Lemansky and Tony and Doug. And hey, I'm calling for a wellness check on Erica. Erica, if you're out there,
Please be chilling.
say something, do something. We love you, Erica, or we're worried about you. All right?
Keep up the good fight. We love your passion, Corey. I really do. All right.
All right. And go the Luka Lakers. Let's roll.
Go Luka Lakers. Whatever. Okay. Let's go quick fire on the chat. We got somebody on the phone line, but who knows if they're gonna hang up again.
We'll be there soon.
And I think it's the last call. Quick fire in the chat. Linda says Kylie played well. Why do you think Guyton struggled with her shot? Because she's a freshman.
Right? Her legs maybe, yeah. It takes a toll on a freshman. You haven't played this hard for this long your whole life. So
Richard wants to know about the Indiana Fever acquiring Sophie Cunningham. Your thoughts?
Love it.
Okay. What does she bring to the Fever?
Toughness, 3-point shot ability. She can get to the rim. We can do a lot of things with her. She's a defensive person. We can do many things with her. I love Sophie. I think it's a great fit. She runs the floor extremely hard. So that's great for Caitlin and, a fast-paced offense. Everything they did was to be faster.
Great. A ghost of Gerulatus says, Kachine, did you ever run into Prince at Raising Cane's? What does that mean? What is this trying to be? I mean, Prince is a celebrity. Prince is a celebrity from Minneapolis, I guess. That's to mention.
Mm-hmm.
Great musician, though. One of the great, and we just lost our caller. One of the greatest musicians to ever live, and most talented people to ever live. Anyways, gone far too soon. Amanda says, we knew about the ice storm all week. Why didn't they leave earlier? I don't know if you.
You know what? I'm not 100% certain because I didn't really check the weather or why or anything of the sort. So I'm not 100% certain on that. It could happen, but it depends. Where was the plane coming from? There's a lot of things that come into play.
Mike says, who would you want at the foul line at the end of the game? Probably Sydney right now.
Probably.
All right. Our caller on the line again. Patrick says,
he's back on the line?
Yeah, this is like the 6th time.
Okay.
We're going to address this with our caller. Patrick says, Kachine is here to throw cold water on our cockeyed optimism. And another Corey, a totally different Corey. How many Corys do we have here? Cash was a mean rebounder in her own right.
Emphasis on mean.
So we brought this up earlier, but boy, Sydney Falter, to me, and Kyle alluded to it earlier, they're getting better production out of Sydney Falter. They're getting better production out of Kylie Feuerbach. And to me, those players haven't just turned it on. It's just been like a steady ascent for them. Remember, they were really close to beating Oregon. They were really close to who'd they lose to earlier in the schedule? That
Illinois,
Indiana, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my point is they've broken through, and now you have a Sydney Falter who was hampered by injury earlier in the year, really attacking the glass hard. How much of, I think it's fair to say it now, like 14 rebound night, she's doing this fairly regularly now. I was just so impressed with her boxing out and finding the ball tonight. I know she was not as small as you on the court in stature, but tell us again, what is it that makes her so good on the glass, and do you see some of yourself in Sydney?
She's a brute. That's why she's good at it. Like, she's a tough, hard-nosed player. It's the number one thing you're going to have to be in order to do that. was a lot more athletic than she was. So mine was I was coming flying in from wherever like that. I could jump higher, but at the same point in time, Sydney has that mindset of, okay, you're not getting this rebound. So she's going to fight you for the rebound. I think that's in her benefit. And she's strong. It's another reason.
Okay. And Casey Blue, how did you end up playing at Iowa? You've told this story before. You visited some places, including Ames, Iowa, which you did not like.
No.
You visited DePaul, if I recall, or was it Marquette?
Yeah, Marquette. It was Marquette, Iowa. I went to Iowa State. I went to Wisconsin, Milwaukee. One because I really like to coach there. I had planned to visit to Temple when Don Staley was there, but I didn't make it there.
And let's see. Chris wants to know any more games on BTN Plus. Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. At Michigan's on Big Ten Plus. Home against Rutgers is on Big Ten Plus. Next game's on Big Ten Network. The following game is the one BTN Plus against Rutgers, and they get Fox, Peacock,
Cool.
Another Peacock. And then, of course, Big Ten Tournament will be nationally televised. Pierre wants to know, Cash, what does Iowa have to do to beat Nebraska this time around? In addition, what do you think of Britt Prince, the Nebraska point guard? And before we address that, because I do want to talk about Nebraska, Stavros, thank you for this super chat, Stavros. Very much appreciated. Building momentum for a decent tournament run, plus absolute eruption next year. And Corey and Kachine provide the best postseason analysis show in the business. Being a Hawkeye fan is the best. Thank you, Stavros. Very much appreciate that. Kachine, tell us what Iowa needs to do to be a dangerous Nebraska team in a very difficult place to play at Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln.
So I'm going to take a different approach to this because I don't think we had a bad game against Nebraska. What I do think happened is what we were struggling with during our little skid is that we get up, we start playing really well, they come back and we just crumble. I do think as far as Prince is concerned, the other Prince, that Kylie Feuerbach is a good enough defender that she's not going to get beat 2 games straight. Because if you guys remember in that game, Prince was torching her. And Aaliyah Gotton came in, and that's who slowed her down in the second half. So, but like I said, Kylie's a good enough defender that she's going to learn from her mistakes and everything else and is going to respond. She's going to respond. So I feel like it'll be a little different for us. However, you are at their home court, so that you got to take that into consideration too. But I like our chances.
Okay.
Come on, Colin, together.
I knew you were gonna know. I knew you were gonna notice that.
Like, if you call back, we're gonna answer right away because you got some patience.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of enabling the behavior?
I don't really care at this point because if they keep calling back, you might as well just answer. There ain't nobody else on the line.
Okay, so it was brought up Prince. Obviously, Alexis Markowski, their leading rebounder, scorer, and block shot player. But because we have our caller calling back in again,
answer it.
We're gonna segue for a second. Caller, I'm sorry, you keep getting disconnected. Does your line keep going dead, caller?
No, this is Annie from Brooklyn, New York.
Hey, Annie, how are you?
I had a little trouble with the phone too.
That's okay.
Every time I wanted to ask a question, you guys answered it. I wanted to ask you about Sophie Cunningham.
Yes.
What you thought of that? And I agree.
Wait to watch her.
I think that's a good move.
Yeah, sounds like.
How do you think that'll work out with Caitlin and her game?
I can't wait to watch them play. I love the Sydney move as well. I think her name is Sydney, right? Yes. I love that move as well. I think that's a great backup point guard scenario because Sydney could play.
I remember when you talked about Sophie Cunningham and how aggressive she was. And
she's a little dirty now.
I looked it up during the show. It was ridiculous, but
she's a little dirty now.
Watching her play on the team.
But I want her on my team. She can be dirty on my team. That's I'm calling it like it is now. I don't want to play against you. but I'd love for you to be on my team and do, be aggressive and all that other stuff. Dewana Bonner was a great move.
She's definitely one of those players. Like, I'm glad she's on our team and nobody else.
Yeah, that's fine. She can.
I'm glad you mentioned her on a previous show because I was unaware, but now I am. Anyway, another thing I wanted to ask you is I'm really happy about this winning streak that the Hawks are putting together. And there was a great win against USC. How do you think they can continue this momentum? Like, especially against Nebraska.
They've won in a couple different ways, which is important. So they've won USC. They got a big, probably the biggest lead we've had to begin a game probably all season. Only to see that dwindle within 10 minutes. And then still fight through it. That's huge. Yeah. Then you play a game where
don't you think?
Yeah, and then you play a game where it's tight the whole game, and you pull it out. They've won in different ways, and I think that's going to help their confidence because they've been there before.
Exactly.
So whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. A lot of these wins are happening in different ways, so that's a good sign. You're right, definitely. Mm-hmm. So I just hope they can still be consistent. Let's hope because it's looking good. It's looking a lot better.
4 in a row is a lot better.
Thanks a lot, guys.
4 wins in a row, Annie's a lot better than 4 losses in a row.
That was scaring me when they started losing. They still got to work on those free throws, though.
Yep. Yeah, there's things to work on. They're not playing perfect basketball.
They cut the turnovers down.
Yeah. By the way, one thing we haven't mentioned: too many open threes for Minnesota. Kachine, tell us what was going on with that. Is that simply the result of just trying to defend the paint, and you're willing to give up open threes?
No, there was some not so good defensive rotations that were happening, like helping strong side on a drive. Like what? That's
one of those things that had they lost, it would have really been a sore spot. But winning, go back and look at the tape and fix that because there were several threes, quite a number of threes in that second half, Kachine, that Minnesota just missed. A couple were deep in the cylinder and then rimmed out. And if they go down, this game might go a different direction. So that's one thing. Anything besides, rotations and closing out on three-point shooters, free throws, anything else that stood out tonight, Kachine, that you thought was something that really needs to be addressed?
Not that I can think of right this second.
Yeah, I think those are some good places to start.
Yeah.
Annie, anything else?
No, you guys, you nailed it. Every time I wanted to ask, you answered the question, but I was just concerned about Sophie Cunningham. This is going to be an exciting year to watch them play. I think that'll be a big improvement to the team. And let's just hope the Hawks can keep this winning streak. They're looking good, and they cut the turnovers down, so I'm happy about that.
Okay, Annie, we appreciate your call. We'll talk to you Monday.
Take good care.
Thank you. You too. All right. Please like and subscribe, folks. And Stavros, I would have had your comment up longer. It's my way of extending appreciation for the super chat, but it covers Kachine's face ups. Kachine's slouching because it's that point in the night where she was already supposed to go to bed and she's stuck with the show. So Stavros, again, very much appreciate.
Stavros is the GOAT.
Everybody's donations. Yes, Stavros. And Lemansky with the chat of the night, just the comment of the night. He says Annie's accent's better than Corey's Ames accent.
Ames has an accent?
I think he's being snarky. Yeah, I don't think Ames has an accent. If it does,
I think anybody got a better accent than Ames. But go ahead.
Yeah, you have a real problem with Ames. You have a real problem with Ames. What did Ames ever do to you? I don't understand.
The Ames.
Okay. All right. Folks, the Iowa Hawkeyes, the women defeat Minnesota tonight. Final score 68-60 behind. Sydney Falters, 13 points, 4 of 9 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3, 2 of 3 from the line, 14 rebounds. She also drew 5 fouls. Really impressive stuff. Only got called for 1. So she's not getting over the back calls. She's not getting pushed in the back because she's getting position, right, Cash? She's working early. She's got a great knack for knowing where the ball is going to bounce off the rim and getting to those spots. Hannah Stolke gave the team 17 points, 7 of 11 from the field, 7 rebounds for Hannah. Taylor McCabe, just one made shot, but it was a big one late, a 3-point shot. Kylie Feuerbach played well, 13 points for Kylie, 4 rebounds. They were all big rebounds. She was 4 of 4 from the line, 4 of 8 from the field, 3 assists for Kylie. Lucy Olson, 7 assists to go along with her 14 points, 4 rebounds. She was 3 of 4 from the line, 5 of 15. Again, the free throw shooting really came down to 2 players, Hannah Stolke, Addie O'Grady. They're obviously very important players to be making shots because they're going to draw fouls on both blocks. So we'll continue to follow that. But this was the veteran game. And for somebody that commented on turnovers earlier, hey, I can live with 14 on the road. For this team, I can live with 14 on the road. I'd like it under 10 in a perfect world, but they're not turning the ball over 20-plus times like they were earlier this year. Got to give the coaching staff credit. It's amazing the improvement in that category alone. They've improved in three-point shooting, and it seems like the play of people like Feuerbach and Falter has just continued to ascend. The Hawks shoot 41% for the game on the road, and just 30% from 3, 64% from the free throw line, but they were terrific defensively, helped the Gophers to 35% from the field, 77% from the free throw line for the Gophers. And the Gophers shot just 25% from 3, made just 7 on 28 attempts. The Hawkeyes dominating the glass. They were plus 11, 44-33, including 11 offensive rebounds for the Hawks. Iowa was good in transition, 11 fast break points to Minnesota's 2. Minnesota got back in this game, I felt like, by slowing Iowa down a bit. Iowa was better when they were getting up and running, and I think she agree that they're just a better team, especially with Hannah's skill set when they can get out and run. And that was good to see tonight. They'll be back on the court this coming Monday. And the question we left off with before Annie called in was basically, hey, Alexis Markowski's really good. It's a challenge for Iowa's bigs. She draws fouls. You wonder if maybe Ava Hayden ends up playing for the first time in a week or two. How do they contain her? We already talked about Britt Prince.
I think it's a better matchup for Hannah down there. She can play her out to the perimeter 3 because we know she's capable of doing that. And then on the flip side, she's got to just move her feet like she did against Crooks at Iowa State. So I think it's a better matchup that way. But Addie is going to have to come in and provide some serious minutes because when Markowski goes out, I think that's where Addie is going to find her mismatch. I can't remember the kid's name who's behind her, but that's her mismatch.
And Natalie Potts has been out since, I think, November. She's done for the year, correct, Kachine?
I believe she is.
So that's a big loss. She's their second leading scorer. But Nebraska is a tournament team right now, 7-5 in the conference, 16-7 overall. They're coming off wow, I mean they've played. Everybody plays a tough schedule in this league. Tough league. Mm-hmm. They're coming off losses to Indiana and Michigan, so they are chomping at the bit for a win the day after Super Bowl Sunday. Folks, I think we hit everybody. We appreciate everybody for being here, and don't forget we have live postgame coverage coming up Monday after that game. I guess one final plug we should give to Cooper DeJean's Eagles gear. I'm assuming you're rooting for the Eagles on Sunday, right, Kachine?
Yep.
You got a big Super Bowl party at the house. What are you making?
Me and my bed.
Huh?
Me and my bed. I got a lot going on this weekend. I have that huge party that I'm putting on Friday for my work event. And then Saturday, I have a big bridal show that we're doing. Yeah. I'm going to be tired.
You're going to be sleeping through the Super Bowl.
Not sleeping. I'm going to just be in my bed chilling.
Okay. Whatever floats your boat, man. I never heard of that, but that's
cool. That's it. I'm relaxing. All right.
Recharge for next week. Folks, shop Cooper DeJean's Eagle gear, his Coop shirt over at cd3-store.1rti.com. Or if that's too hard, just click the link in the description. It's Super Bowl week. It's Coop week. A shout out to the OABCIG alum. Let me see if I can get that out. The Odebolt, Iowa native. Again, rtithreads.com. Visit rtithreads.com/NIL or click the links in our description. Cash, it's been a pleasure once again to be with you. Get some sleep. We'll talk to you Monday.